You've seen the charts. If you had invested $10,000 in this company in 1980, you'd be a billionaire today. You've heard the analysis. The current market pattern looks just like it did right before the crash of 1929. We are obsessed with using history as a roadmap. We search through past data, desperate to find patterns that will give us a clue, an edge, a map to tell us what's coming next. We believe that if we can just find the right historical analogy, we can unlock the secrets of the future and get rich. But what if this is the single most dangerous way to use history? What if the past is not a map to be followed, but something else entirely? Today, we are going to explore a profound idea from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, how to properly learn from financial history. And the answer is deeply counterintuitive. The most important lesson that history teaches us is that the world is always, constantly, surprising us. First, let's understand why we are so drawn to historical patterns. Our brains are pattern recognition machines. It's a survival skill. Finding patterns allowed our ancestors to predict where to find food or when the seasons would change. In a chaotic and uncertain world, patterns give us a sense of order, control, and predictability. So, when we look at a stock chart, we instinctively search for a familiar shape because we believe it will tell us where the line is going next. The problem, as Housel argues, is that in finance and economics, the world is not a static system. The rules are always changing. Technology, politics, social norms, and the global economy are in a state of perpetual evolution. Assuming that a pattern from 50 years ago will repeat exactly today is a recipe for disaster because the underlying conditions of the world are completely different. So, if history is not a map to predict the future, what is it good for? Housel's answer is that history is the ultimate guide to human behavior. While the world changes, the fundamentals of human psychology do not. The emotions that drove financial decisions in 17th century Amsterdam are the same emotions that drive them today in New York or Tokyo. Greed and fear are timeless. Think about the Dutch tulip mania in the 1600s. A story took hold that tulips were a new form of currency and a status symbol, and people, caught in a frenzy of greed and FOMO, bid up the price of a single bulb to more than the cost of a house. It ended in a devastating crash. Now, think about the dot-com bubble in the late 1990s. The story was that the internet changes everything, and people, caught in the same frenzy of greed and FOMO, bid up the price of companies with no revenue to astronomical levels. It too ended in a devastating crash. The technology was different, but the human behavior was identical. The story changes, but the way we react to a compelling story does not. History teaches us what to expect from ourselves and from others during times of market extremes. It shows us our own reflection under pressure. But this leads us to the most important and most humbling lesson that history can teach. If you study enough of it, you realize that the most significant events that shape our world are always the ones that nobody saw coming. Housel calls these tail events the extreme, outlier moments that were unprecedented. Think about it. No statistical model based on 19th century data could have ever predicted World War I. No analysis of post-war economics could have predicted the Great Depression's depth and length. These events weren't just market downturns. They were structural breaks in history. They were surprises. And the single most important lesson history teaches us is that the future will be filled with similar surprises. Events that have never happened before will happen again and again. This is a terrifying thought for someone who wants certainty. But for a wise investor, it is the most valuable insight of all. It leads to the understanding that the most important part of any financial plan is not a brilliant prediction, but a humble admission of ignorance. It's the admission that we do not, and cannot, know what's coming next. This admission is what leads to the most powerful tool in finance, the margin of safety, or what Housel calls room for error. If you know that the future will bring surprises you can't predict, then building a plan that relies on a specific version of the future happening incredibly fragile. A robust plan is one that can survive and even thrive when things don't go according to plan. A margin of safety is your explicit acknowledgement that the world is unpredictable. What does this look like in practice? It means not being leveraged to the hilt with debt. Debt removes your room for error. It makes you fragile. A single surprise, like a job loss or a market downturn, can wipe you out. It means having a healthy emergency fund, held in boring, safe cash. That cash isn't there to generate a return. It's there to protect you from being forced to sell your long-term investments at the worst possible time to cover an unexpected expense. It is your shock absorber against the surprises of life. It means diversifying your investments. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, not because you expect that basket to break, but because you acknowledge that you can't possibly know what might happen to it. So, how should you use history to guide your financial life? First, stop looking for specific forecasts. Start looking for broad patterns of behavior. Don't ask, what did the market do after the last interest rate hike? Ask, how did people behave the last time they were faced with widespread fear and uncertainty? Second, use history to expand your sense of what's possible. Read about the hyperinflation of Weimar Germany. Read about the Great Depression. Read about Japan's lost decades. This isn't to say you should expect these things to happen to you tomorrow. It's to humble you. It's to widen your understanding of the range of possible outcomes. So, you appreciate the need for a resilient, not just an optimized, financial plan. History is not a crystal ball, it is a teacher of humility. It teaches us that while we can't predict the future, we can prepare for it, and the best preparation is not a perfect forecast, but a robust plan that can withstand the one thing we know for sure history will deliver: surprise. The wise investor doesn't claim to know what will happen next. They only claim to know that they will be prepared for it when it does. That is the ultimate lesson from the psychology of money.